everybody. Welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show. We're out here at Thompson High School in Warrior Stadium where we're going to have another big matchup this Friday night. Thompson going to play in a rematch game against Hewitt-Trussville, a game that was thrilling to us all as fans a couple weeks back on ESPN, ESPN2, a nationally televised game that Thompson won in thrilling fashion. That's going to be a round 2 quarterfinal matchup between those two teams and looking for a spot in the semifinals. So we'll touch on that one. The other team to advance on to round 2 of the playoffs from Shelby County, that was the Briarwood Lions with a big win in the opening round against Valley. They went on to handle business pretty easily as well, just like Thompson did. We'll talk about both of those teams on this week's show pretty thoroughly and give a prediction and preview for what's to come this Friday night as both look to advance and make another deep postseason run like they did a season ago. We did have 3 teams that unfortunately had their seasons come to an end last Friday night in the first round of the playoffs. The Montevallo Bulldogs, Vincent Yellow Jackets, and Pelham Panthers all fell in the opening round of the playoffs. The Bulldogs, they lose to Andalusia 28-8, and really an unfortunate ending to a very special season there for Montevallo. They finished the season overall 9-2, and it was a strong year for them. They've had two of the last 3 years have been really impressive in head coach Brandon Wilcox's first 3 years there at the helm, running the show for Montevallo. And really what's been impressive is the way that they were able to turn around from last year's team that kind of struggled at times and turned it into an impressive year this season in 2018 and have their offensive playmakers in J.J. Evans and Malika and Manette there coming back, a solid connection throughout the season this year, but an unfortunate ending as we thought this team could make a little bit of a run in the postseason. I did think there were teams that were better in 4A overall, but it was a special season to watch unfold for Montevallo, the way they played for their head coach and bought in as a team and really played complete games throughout the season. So obviously deserve a congratulations on this season that they had. The Pelham Panthers, a similar situation. Their first winning season since 2014, their most wins since the 2013 season, despite their 35-7 loss in the opening round to a very good number 4 Hartselle team in the 6A classification. This is a Pelham team. This is really the first one that's kind of bought in. The guys really seem proud to be playing there for Pelham and are guys that are going to be coming back and building this program moving forward. So a special season there for the Panthers as they did some big and important things, and a lot of star playmakers made some big-time plays throughout the season. So it was impressive to see what they were able to do under head coach Tom Causey, who continues to help build this program and move them in the right direction. Obviously making the playoffs the last 2 years is special enough, but to do what they did, finish 7-4 overall, their most wins since 2013, and first winning season since 2014 shows that this program just continues to head in the right direction. So an unfortunate end in the first round of the playoffs despite gaining an early 7-0 lead, but they do go on to lose that game 35-7. And Vincent, another one. All 3 of these teams that did drop in the first round had a special thing to build off of this season. The Yellow Jackets make their first postseason since the 2014 year as well, and it's a team that was really in disarray over the last few years until Wiley McKellar came in. He turned that program around over the last 2 seasons, but they were struggling going into last year, and last year they had an impressive year to kind of get the program going in the right direction. McKellar left, went down to James Clemens to join that coaching staff, and then you bring in Lucas Weatherford, who really in 1 year got this team believing, and it was unbelievable to see what he was able to do there for Vincent as well, as they do fall in the first round of the playoffs but make the playoffs nonetheless, which is really what you look for to continue building this program moving forward. And for a lot of seniors on that team that have been through the ups and the downs, there were a lot of downs throughout their time there at Vincent, but they were able to turn things around. Battle. They made the playoffs this year, and that's something that they're probably going to remember for the rest of their lives. So an unfortunate ending for those teams, but a lot of special things to build off of moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, this Friday night we've got those 2 big playoff matchups still to come. Briarwood will be looking for a spot in the quarterfinals of the 5A playoffs, while the Thompson Warriors will be taking on Hewitt-Trussville, looking for a spot in the semifinals for the second consecutive year. And from where this Thompson program was back in 2014, that's just an unbelievable feat for them if they're able to accomplish that. It's going to be a lot of fun. 2 big matchups taking place and 2 top 6 matchups taking place. So we're going to break those two games down, and we're going to start with that Thompson game that's going to take place out here at Warrior Stadium on Friday night against Hewitt-Trussville. If you did miss that first matchup between Thompson and Hewitt-Trussville, I don't know what you were doing because it was all over the place. Everybody was talking about it around the Birmingham area and really nationally as these two teams just lit up the scoreboard, put on an action-packed show a few weeks back. But now you get another opportunity, another chance to see two-star quarterbacks, two Alabama commits go head-to-head, and two teams with a ton of Division I recruits going head-to-head as well. And the first matchup didn't disappoint. It was a matchup that Thompson was able to win 63-49, but they trailed 28-0 early in the second quarter of that game, going to outscore Hewitt-Trussville 63-21 the rest of the way. And really the thing that turned that game around was their running game. We talked about it the whole week leading up to that game with Hewitt-Trussville the first time around, and that's because of the way both of these teams fared against Mountain Brook. Mountain Brook's a team that likes to run the ball a lot, really is going to be physical in the trenches, and that really wore down Hewitt-Trussville. And Thompson the week after that loss to Mountain Brook was after Hewitt lost to Mountain Brook, Thompson was able to go in that next week, beat Mountain Brook with their same game plan. So it just showed that Thompson was able to use that physical in the trench kind of style to wear down a team, and that's Hewitt-Trussville had struggled with that throughout the year. So that was obviously going to be the game plan going into that first matchup between these two teams. But Hewitt-Trussville came out and jumped up early, was putting up points. Thompson got into the red zone twice, but was unable to come away with points. And Hewitt-Trussville was up 28-0 before you could blink, and that kind of took Thompson out of their game plan early in that game, as they had to try to come from behind, throw the ball a little bit to catch up. But once they got back within 2 scores, and head coach Mark Freeman talked about it after the game, once they got back to within 2 scores, that's when they wanted to get back to the ground game, knowing that they could exploit that and score some points quickly, and they did just that. And they went on a tear. Shadrick Bird, 200-plus rushing yards in that game, 3 touchdowns. Talia Tungavaloa also had 100-plus rushing yards and a strong game on the ground as well with 2 touchdowns rushing. And those two guys just lit it up. And while you might expect Thompson to be led by Tungavaloa's arm, one of the best arms in the country at throwing the football, it was really their ground game that dominated and won that game and created for one of the more exciting and thrilling comebacks that you'll ever see at the high school level. So building off of that, you would think that that's going to be the same game plan going into this week. You would think Thompson's figured out a way to exploit that defense, but at the same time, you know Hewitt-Trussville is going to have adjustments made. It's in football, beating a team twice in one season, much less in a 4-week span, is probably one of the most difficult things you can do. We've seen it proven time and time again with the best teams that it's hard to take them down twice in 1 year. And Thompson was on the other end of that last year. They were a team that was able to beat Hoover in the regular season a season ago, and then in the semifinals of the playoffs last year, just got dominated in that game against the Buccaneers. So that just kind of shows you what can happen in these rematch games. And you know that Hewitt-Trussville is going to bring a different attitude than they did in that first game, getting dominated specifically on the defensive side of the ball. You know they feel embarrassed. They want to make up for that. But at the same time, you know Thompson's going to be prepared for those adjustments and be ready to make changes themselves. So, if this Hewitt-Trussville defense, which has struggled all season long, giving up 26.9 points per game on that side of the ball and has given up a combined 104 points in their last 2 games, they're going to make adjustments. But if you make adjustments to stop the run, which Thompson has shown they can do pretty easily throughout the season, then Talia Tungavaloa is going to beat you with his arm. He's got plenty of weapons out wide to throw to, and so that's going to be something to keep an eye on to see how both of these teams kind of adjust to that first matchup a few weeks back. Hewitt-Trussville coming off a thrilling game in the first round against James Clemens where they had to exert a ton of energy in a 43-41 comeback win that they could have easily lost. They scored with just over a minute left, right around a minute, were able to hold on for the victory there. But that was a thrilling one. Thompson struggled a little bit early on with Florence going into the half with a 17-7 lead, but end up winning that game pretty dominantly, 45-14. And Talia Tungavaloa, a similar game that he had against Hewitt-Trussville a couple weeks ago, 255 passing yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, but added 91 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown as well to lead the team on the ground. So he's playing very similar football as he was that first matchup Shadrack Bird's going to be a guy that you have to keep an eye on. And you just get the feel the same thing. Thompson's defense is slightly better, giving up just 17 points per game. Offense not quite as good or explosive, scoring 37.6 points per game. But on paper, these two teams are very evenly matched. I think the key is going to be for Thompson to stick with a similar game plan, exploit Hewitt-Trussville's defense that has really been less than stellar throughout the season, while at the same time making big plays on the defensive side of the ball themselves. This is a Thompson defense that gave up some big chunk pass plays downfield in that first matchup between these two teams, and those long gains have got to stop. You've got to shore up the backside of the defense, and I think that's going to be a key for Freeman, the defensive coordinator, and the coaching staff throughout the week to try to get things ready to go for Friday night. But either way, this is going to be an unbelievable matchup between these two teams, both state championship contending teams coming into the season. They meet in round 2, the quarterfinals. Winner is on to the semifinals. So they're going to put on a show for you, and if you didn't make it out to the first one, you saw how incredible that game was. You should definitely try to make it out to this one, because I don't expect it to be any less stellar this time around. The other playoff matchup that we're going to have taking place this Friday night is going to take place down in Vigor, Pritchard, Alabama. It's going to be the Briarwood Christian Lions traveling down there to take on number 2 Vigor, another top 10 battle. These two teams sitting inside the top 10. Briarwood has had another strong season, sitting at 9-2 currently after their first round win against Valley. Win that one 42-28. But Vigor has had an unbelievable season so far, and many consider them to be a state championship favorite heading into the playoffs. And now into round 2, they pick up a 45-8 win against Central Tuscaloosa in the opening round. And they've just looked unstoppable this year. The only loss they've had came to 6A Opelika, who is one of the more dominant 6A teams on a year-in, year-out basis, and that loss came by 1 point in overtime, 23-22. So this is a very good Vigor football team, and Briarwood's going to have their hands full, and it really starts on the defensive side of the ball. Both of these teams are defensive teams throughout the season so far. Briarwood giving up 9.7 points per game on the season, while Vigor's giving up just 6.3 points per game. And for the longest time throughout the year, we thought Briarwood had the best defense in the state. And over the past couple weeks, they've given up some points, and that average has gone up just a little bit by about 3 points per game. And now Vigor's got one of the best in the state, and it's just been consistent all season long. The most points they gave up was to Opelika in that 6A game, the 23 points they gave up there. But aside from that, it's just been dominant, giving up 16 points or less in 10 of their 11 games and 8 points or less in 9 of their 11 games. So they haven't given up double digits in most of their games this season, and that's just an incredible feat to this point in the year and through round 1 of the playoffs. So for Briarwood, it's going to start on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense, I've said it all season, is going to keep them in every game that they play in, even in the playoffs as they go through this stretch where they have a chance. If they win this one, it's going to be 2 more number 1 seeds just to get to the state championship game, most likely with Demopolis and Ramsey. So this is a game where their offense is going to have to take advantage of how well their defense is playing. And so far throughout the season, there's been some times where they have, obviously coming off a 42-point performance against Valley. They've put up 40 points and I believe 30-plus points in 4 of their last 6 games, but there still is, the defense is doing a lot of the work to get them in good positions. They're scoring on defense. They're doing a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball to help the offense out, which has made some plays to take advantage of it at times, but it's just not been consistent throughout the season. And last week, Luke Pruitt unfortunately goes down with a pretty bad ankle injury, and there's a good chance he's probably going to miss this Friday night, and if they win, he may be done for the season as well. So they do still have J.R. Tranrino at the running back position, or really the athlete position, because he's going to play all over the field, some at quarterback, wide receiver, and running back, and they're going to have him going big time in this game because they're going to need him to put up a lot of yards, not only that, but score a lot as well on the offensive side of the ball. But the big key, it doesn't rest on J.R. Tranrino's shoulder. It rests on the offensive line's shoulder and Jonah Carroll's shoulders, the quarterback there for Briarwood. They're going to have offensive line protection for him, make him feel comfortable in the pocket, and he's going to have to take some chances in this kind of game throughout the season. He really hasn't been as consistent as I'm sure he wants to be, but he has looked good at times and done some good things. He's just looked a little bit uncomfortable in the pocket. He tends to roll out very quickly and get rid of the ball in some bad situations sometimes. So if he can step up in the pocket, look downfield, and find some receivers, then they're going to have a strong chance in this game. The defense is going to keep them in this contest, but at the same time, you've also got to have the receivers step up and get open and run their routes correctly as well. So the offense is going to have to make a huge leap in transition this week going into that game with Vigor against one of the best defenses that, if not the best defense, that Briarwood has seen all season. Now, Briarwood has shown some positive things against very good football teams. 6A Hartselle team that just dominated Pelham 35-7. Briarwood was able to take them to overtime, end up losing that one 14-7, but that shows their defense can keep you in a very physical and tough game against another team that's very good defensively. That Hartselle team's probably just as good defensively as this Vigor team is. And then against Ramsey, Briarwood loses 21-7. They lost both to Hartselle and Ramsey. Lose that one 21-7 to the Rams, and that was another game where the defense made play after play to keep them in that contest. The offense just couldn't get over the edge and make that next big play that it needed to, but it was still in that game as well. So the real time that they proved to me that they could compete and win a game like this Friday night is the last game of the regular season against Hueytown, who has a talented offense and has been decent throughout the year on the defensive side of the ball as well. And as a 6A Hueytown that was 8-1 going into that game, and Briarwood throttled them throughout and really controlled things. And that showed to me that this team could take that next step and win a big playoff game like this. And it's a team that's not used to losing either. They've lost 2 this year, but before that had lost just 2 the last 2 years combined. So it's a team that knows how to win. It's a team that's going to fight and make plays happen to extend their season. This is the 4th straight year that they've been on to the second round of the playoffs. The last 2 years, 2 years ago they end up in the semifinals, fall in a heartbreaking game there. And then last year, obviously, the state championship game that they should have won and end up losing that one. So this team has a hunger, has a desire, wants to get back into that situation where they have a chance to win a state championship this year, and that's going to come with playing their best football on the offensive side of the ball this Friday night. We know their defense is good. They're also going to have to play strong and not think that they're any better. They're going to have a strong game on that side of the ball, but the offense is going to have to pick up some momentum and play a big game on Friday night. And like I said, you know, they've shown some good things on the ground so far this year. And last week, Pruitt 140 yards and a touchdown in the first half before he got injured. J.R. Train-Reno ends up with 4 touchdowns in that win and a 92-yard kickoff return as well. So the offense, they have playmaking ability. Train-Reno can do just about everything, but he's going to have somebody in the backfield throwing the ball that can take some pressure off of them, and that's where the offensive line, Jonah Carroll, and the receivers have to step up and make some big plays. But either way, that's going to be a lot of fun if you get the chance. Obviously, a long drive down there to Pritchard to catch that game, but if you get the chance, go and support the Briarwood Lions, see if they can't pick up that big win against Vigor. But either way, these 2 games are going to be a lot of fun to watch on Friday night. I expect 2 very hard-fought, close games defensively in the Briarwood-Vigor game, and then the opposite of that in this one. You never know. It could be a defensive battle here, but I do expect both of these offenses to put up a ton of points again after putting up 100-plus combined points in that matchup a few weeks back. So we'll see how it unfolds, but going to be a lot of fun to get out and catch some awesome playoff football on Friday night between 2 top 10 matchups there in these 2 contests that we do have going on. Obviously, I'm going to be out here at Thompson, Hewitt-Trussville, where we expect a lot of fun to happen in a big-time game with a trip to the semifinals on the line, while the Briarwood Lions will be looking to go on to the quarterfinals of the 5A playoffs. But make sure you get out, support those teams. But for now, that's going to do it here from a cold Warrior Stadium, where we'll see you on Friday night.